What's up, Canes fans? Welcome to, I already had to screw this up. I screwed up the intro. What's up, Canes fans? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. We are live, as you can see by that screw up right there. But I will tell you who's not missing. That is Mario Cristobal, the Miami Hurricanes, landing the #1 overall player in the portal, Carson Beck. A lot to talk about. QBU, keep on rolling here. Could it be back? We'll talk about it. Anajar and Levine, we love you. If you've been in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. 1-800-747-3733. 1-800-747-FREE. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. But it's time to take back control of the ACC, turning a huge, huge hole into perhaps the best position group in the ACC at that spot. So let's talk about it. Pete, hop in. I'm all over the place already.
Yeah, man. I was here doing prep for the show, and D banged the table. Like, I thought something bad happened. I didn't know what was going on. He was looking at his phone, and then he started to just kind of shout things that I don't know what he was saying. And then he said, "Oh, he just committed. Carson Beck just committed." So this guy is he's full of energy, and so am I, man. I mean, I'm excited about this pickup. Obviously, considering the accolades, right? People can nitpick. Was not a great season for him whatsoever, fell apart, so to speak. But the track record that he has at a program like Georgia, a legit NFL prospect, the injury is going to be a huge discussion here. But Miami, again, does their research in situations like this, and it's something where he's not going to be able to play during the spring, but should be ready to go, well before the season. And look, there's going to be an adjustment because of that, because he can't throw with these guys. So it's going to be, that timetable is going to be shortened drastically, but you're betting on a guy who's done it at the highest level in the SEC, has had to be a guy in a locker room full of alphas at Georgia, right? He's not going to be the same personality. There's going to be a lot of, he's not Cam Ward. He's not the same player, and they're different personalities. But the fact that he has legit accolades at that stage, to me, commands a respect in a locker room, and he's still gonna have to earn it, but it's different walking in there when guys aren't gonna have to Google who you are or search up your highlights. They've watched you on the biggest stage.
Yeah, and you talk about, I said to the quarterback youth thing earlier. How many times have I used that Lincoln Riley example at Oklahoma, where people just looked at it like, hey, this is a place where you can go and you're going to be able to rebuild your stock or build your stock and get to where you want to go. Obviously, Cam Ward set the blueprint. Very good chance, based on the way things are falling, that he is going to shake Commissioner Goodell's hand as the first overall pick in the draft. For people my age or younger, we've never seen that. I mean, you did have, Russell Maryland, Vinny Testaverde maybe in our lifetimes, but as far as like sitting there and watching the draft and the draft being a big spectacle, this is the first time you're going to see that orange and green in that position. Now with Carson Beck, who was projected to be where Cam Ward is before the season, could you have two in a row in that position? If that happens, now you really are QBU. Now you've really cemented the reputation as a place where you are going to have those opportunities. Biggest reason, of course, up front, right? That is the biggest difference from Cam Ward at Washington State and Cam Ward at Miami. He was still the same great player. Carson Beck, it's amazing to say this about Georgia and Miami, but he's going to have a better offensive line at Miami than at Georgia. I mean, I'm sorry. That is a fact. When the NFL dust settles, Pete, you'll see. This Miami offensive line will be better than what Georgia had last year, NFL-wise. Receiver, Miami still has to build that up, but Georgia's receivers led the nation in drops last year. Not a big bar to clear with that position. Running back, Georgia's running game dropped in 2023 when Carson Beck was one of the most efficient players in the country. They were 17th in the nation in rushing. They dropped to 102nd this year. Georgia, the University of Georgia. So when people talk about Beck and doing too much, throwing too many picks this year, still threw for 3,500 yards and 28 touchdowns, by the way, but doing too much, they don't realize everything around him on Georgia's offense collapsed. 102nd in rushing. The University of Georgia leading the nation in drops. So he will actually have better offensive personnel here than he did last year. Maybe not in 23 when he had Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. That was pretty good. But certainly this year. And the competition on the other side. Look, SEC is down. We've been laughing about their downfall for a while. But let's be real. The SEC and the ACC are not on the same plane at this point. So you look at a guy like Kyle McCord who came from the Big Ten. He had he had a great system at Ohio State, great receivers. I mean, he had a lot of things around him, but he looked pretty mediocre there. Remove him from that setting, put him in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and Kyle McCord's leading the nation in passing. So a guy like Carson Beck, not only does his talent around him improve on offense, but the other side decreases significantly. The opponents decrease significantly. You do start with Notre Dame. You do play Florida, who, by the way, Carson Beck has beat twice. And Miami's offensive line pushed around last year. Take that for what it's worth. But once you get to ACC play, he is going to be by far, in my view, the most talented quarterback in the conference. Cade Klubnik, very good college player. He can run, he can throw. I like Cade Klubnik. If you're talking about NFL, the best talent in the conference, hands down, is Carson Beck. So this is just a monumental move. There's some negatives. It's not all positive. We can go through those, and we will during the show. But, I mean, if you're Miami, this is an absolute home run, and you cannot ask for a better bridge to what is hopefully the next quarterback, which is going to be a very exciting battle in the spring that we'll be covering.
Yeah, and look, I spoke to someone in the NFL about where Beck stood, where Ward stood, and all that. And Beck right now, we saw Pete Thamel had a story yesterday that said Beck was getting feedback. He'd be a late first round pick to a third round pick. I talked to someone today who probably said third, fourth round. I mean, look, there's mixed opinions on him, as there are with quarterbacks. It's always a position where there's stuff all over the board on. But coming to Miami with something to prove, just like Cam Ward, who again came back for a reason. He would have been gone last year if he was going to be drafted anywhere near this position. I'm not even going to say, top 10 first round pick guaranteed. He was getting late round to undrafted. Probably would have been picked. Someone would have taken a chance on him, I think 6th round, 7th round, but nowhere near where he is now. Beck, similarly, I don't think he would have been a late round pick, but again, probably somewhere in that mid rounds. But when you are into October, November, still talked about as a pretty surefire first round pick, and then all of a sudden now, because of the injury, the way the season ended, right, you have to then reprove yourself. People saying, well, his girlfriend's here, he might be coming down here to chill, hang out, get paid. People were seeing that, which, by the way, people have been saying in the comments that Miami may have a money problem. The NIL, the collective's not working. It seems like it's working just fine if they were able to close this deal as quickly as they were. But that's a whole nother discussion. My point in what I'm saying is that he's coming in here with a real motivation. This is not an extra year just to get paid. He's really got to work himself back up that board. And it's not going to take a season where he goes and wins a Heisman Trophy to do that. He's got to just get back closer to what he was a couple seasons ago. And that's a guy who protected the football, could push the ball downfield when the team needed him to. But with Miami, with what they have around him in terms of the offensive line, the run game, I think he's equipped to do that.
100%. By the way, I got some comments here. Appreciate you, Larry, all your support. Everybody in the chat. Almost 2,000 in the chat. Hassan, good job, D-Money and Pete. You guys called it. Now you guys can give me the lottery numbers, please. Like and subscribe to this show, guys, if you want. If you're new to this show, please like and subscribe. If you're a Canes fan, we're on daily. We're trying to give you the absolute latest. There's a reason why we were talking about Beck, 4 days ago and really earlier than that. We can't tell you everything that's going on because some of the stuff strategically would hurt the team for us to discuss too explicitly, but we will not lead you astray. If we're talking about something or hinting at something, it is because there's a reason for it. And I think this particular move just made, aside from the information aspect of it, it just made too much sense for what he needs, trying to rehab his stock. He liked Miami out of high school. He's from Jacksonville, of course. He is dating Hannah Cavender, one of the top guards on the University of Miami women's basketball team. And, the the fit of the player behind the offensive line and what's needed and what Cam Ward just showed can be done. The negatives, because I don't want to just be hype. Here are the negatives, and they're real negatives. So number one, he's injured. He has he just had surgery on his elbow, his throwing arm, a few weeks ago. Now, this is not, those of you who are baseball fans, you hear elbow surgery, you're thinking, 18 months, right? Which is what it is in baseball. This is not your Tommy John surgery. This is a different motion, of course, different surgery, completely different surgery. This was a repair, and I'm not a doctor, but it's a brace, which is the same surgery that Brock Purdy had. And Brock Purdy had the same surgery 2 months after Beck. And not only was he ready for the season, but he had his best season ever, went to the Super Bowl as an MVP candidate, no drop in velocity or accuracy. So if the Brock Purdy blueprint is the same, and it seems to be based on all reports, the injury should not be a concern for his performance in the season. He would miss spring, should be full go by summer. Now, look, every injury is different. So to say it's not a concern would be a lie. Anytime your quarterback's throwing arms cut open, it's a concern because you just don't know how things will react. You know, there'll be setbacks. That is just kind of the headline concern. The second big concern I would say is, this is a guy who, talking to Georgia people, I've talked to friends that are close to that program. I've watched, a lot of their more reputable podcasts talking about Beck. Rusty Mansell is their top insider. And the word on Beck, he is not like Ward is as far as just being that alpha leader, like right in everybody's face. He is very much to himself at times. He's older than a lot of the players on Georgia, just like he'd be older than all the players on Miami. He's a 2020 kid. So, this season, they said he lived off campus. He lived with someone who wasn't even a football player. Like the way they described him was he was very much a professional player playing college, right? So it wasn't that he wasn't working or anything like that, or he wasn't tough on the field. I think both of those he does check those boxes, but he's not that guy that's going to be, in everybody's face. And look, we had Derek King, who to me was a phenomenal leader. He's a coach right now, so that tells you something. Cam Ward, I think, is A+ leader. I don't think Beck is going to be that as far as vocally. That's something to keep an eye on. Also, he had an interview where he said, he doesn't watch football when he's not playing.
That rubs some people the wrong way.
And I've heard both sides. This has been a topic of debates, with these. I listen to a lot of scouting podcasts, Pete, people that are, legitimate NFL people. And they talked about the comments. Some of them said it was taken out of context. If you listen to the whole thing, he's saying like, I don't like watching it because I'm thinking about situations and it's stressing me out. He's not saying like, oh, I hate football. He's saying, I don't like to sit there and watch it because when I'm watching it, I get into kind of work mode. Right. So it was taken a little bit out of context, but like you said, some NFL people didn't like it. Some, it didn't bother them. I spoke to an NFL source right before he went on. And basically the word was, from his perspective, and everybody's got different views, he said, look, 100% NFL starter potential, 100% can win the ACC. Supporting cast did him no favors. He did have some bad games this year where things really went south on him. But the overall impression was, you can't do much better than getting an NFL starter in the portal, right? That's why he's the number one ranked overall player in the portal. So, we'll see how it goes. We had the best in Cam Ward. I can't imagine anything topping that, but this was the guy that was where Cam Ward is now, number one overall pick, potentially shaking the hand of the GM going to the Titans. Before the season, you thought that'd be Beck. So the fact that we now have Beck with an opportunity to rehabilitate his stock to that point is very intriguing, not only for this year and winning the ACC and getting to the playoffs and keeping the momentum, but also establishing a tradition that, hey, this is Miami. This is where the big boys play.
Right.
You go to, and this sounds so stupid, Pete, but I really think this is something. And Pete, you're around players more than I am, but I'm around my kids who are probably closer in age to the players than I am. And, they're looking at NCAA rankings. They're saying, hey, I'm like, who am I going to use in the video game? I'm going to use Miami because their quarterback's a 93. You know what I mean? It's that sort of cultural relevance that I think a guy like Carson Beck sliding into Miami, it keeps that Miami logo in the conversation all summer, all spring.
Well, and a couple things, not to interject there, but it's some would say, well, I don't care about it. Who cares about cultural relevance? 24-3 is his record at Georgia. And to me, this is not a quarterback wins are not a stat. They are not a stat. So we can't make this, it's not apples to apples here. But Cam Ward's record coming into Miami was a concern for some people. Right there, we did hear, man, this guy hasn't won any games. So what are you doing bringing in a guy who doesn't know how to win? Right, that's the narrative around it. You're doing the opposite here. This is a guy, again, 24-3 at Georgia is an incredible record. Did he have one of the best rosters in the country? 1,000%. But you still need someone to kind of help guide you there. Now, I wanted to bring something up to you because we're getting this a lot in the comments, and we had this discussion off the air. And our boy Brad Crawford just kind of confirmed what I had told you yesterday. Brad Crawford tweeted this. We're getting a lot of comments about this. This was yesterday. He said, if Miami can land Carson Beck, I'd expect an elite wide receiver to leave his current situation during the spring portal and link up with the Canes. He just tweeted right now, 14 minutes ago, which elite wide receiver will join Carson Beck in Miami during the spring transfer portal? It's coming. So he was speculating that someone would. I don't think there was someone in mind. I agree with that statement. There's receivers across the country right now who are going to get to they maybe got it. They re-upped with their collective. They got a deal for this next year, and they're banking on their current quarterback situation being good next year. Things happen in spring. Things reveal themselves. Injuries happen where certain situations may not be what guys thought they were. They may be looking over at Miami with exactly everything you're saying in terms of that name recognition. It may be someone that Beck does know personally, right? But that's where the name recognition part helps here, and that's why I think Crawford sent that out yesterday.
Yeah, and look, you have some really talented receivers to me in-house, right? We talk about JoJo Trader and Elijah Lofton. They're not Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. I'm not saying they are that. These are really talented guys. And you don't know how good they are until you really feature them, right? You don't know how much they can handle. When they're rolling crease in that bowl game with Cam Ward throwing the ball, they look pretty capable to me, right? So a guy like Carson Beck, I'm not saying he's Cam Ward. I don't think he's Cam Ward, but it's probably as close as you're going to get, or there's not that many guys who have that level of cachet and proven production and physical tools at the college level right now. So you saw what Lofton and Trader did with Ward. Beck, I think, can make those guys stars. I really do believe. I think they are stars. They just need a guy that can get it to them. And I think, look, he got it to McConkey, he got it to Bowers. They're not that, but they're pretty good. And we don't know how good they can be. I think Beck's the guy that can get them to where they need to be. And if you're one of those two, or Nikar or any one of these other young players, you're ecstatic today because you know that you're not going to, when you're a young player, you don't want a young quarterback to learn on the job, right? Look at the NFL. It's usually when you have a young quarterback, you want veteran playmakers because they'll bring that young quarterback along. But if you have a veteran quarterback, you can have young playmakers because the veteran quarterback brings along the young playmakers. So Beck, not more veteran quarterbacks than him. He's 24 years old during the season. He turns 24 during the season. He can bring along those young playmakers because he's been in these situations. He knows what to do. He's dealt with guys with that kind of talent, and he could bring them up. So to me, the really big beneficiaries of this, aside from just Miami Hurricanes fans and Mario Cristobal, who's staring at, a very dangerous situation at quarterback, is those two. JoJo Trader, Elijah Lofton. Let's throw Nikar in that mix.
We have over 3,000 live with us here. Appreciate everyone on. Huge news today as Carson Beck signs with Miami. This thing came together pretty quickly here, less than 48 hours, like 36 hours almost. I mean, it was quick, man. So we've been all over it here at Canes Inside and excited to really deep dive as we get into spring here over the next few weeks and take a look at some of the good, some of the bad, right? And, get different people on the show who have their opinions on it as well. So it's going to definitely be a nice talking point, but we're all going to be wanting, injury updates, D. I'm sure that's going to be a hot thing that people ask for, but you know, the good thing is that he's been in the middle of this process here for a few weeks.
Yeah, and again, eyes open. Miami is not something that was surprised them. They know the prognosis. Again, hearing the agents and all those people talk, they're saying spring. Wouldn't play in spring, but he'd be ready to throw in spring. I've heard that Beck's telling people that probably June is when he's going to be like really locked and loaded, throwing with full velocity. Plenty of time. It's not ideal. Look, you want him to develop chemistry with the receivers. You want him to learn the offense. It's a new offense going from what Mike Bobo was doing to more of an air raid system. Air raid system should actually be simpler than what he was doing at Georgia, so that's a plus. But here's the silver lining, Pete. And look, I'm not going to lie and say this is a perfect scenario because you'd rather have Carson Beck throwing in spring. You want Carson Beck right now coming to campus, throwing with receivers, throwing in spring, getting his timing, learning the offense. That's the perfect scenario. It's not going to happen. But the silver lining is you got a guy coming in Luke Nickel, who just tore up the state of Georgia. You had people that have been around Georgia for a long time, high school guys, saying he's the best quarterback that's come out of there in a while based on how he played as a senior. All right. He was Mr. Football. He won the state championship, undefeated, put up insane numbers, really dominated the playoffs. I watched 3 of those games. He was completely dominant. I think he was like 21-22 in the championship against the second best team, one of the best teams in the country. So Luke Nickel, his trajectory is right here. Elite 11 quarterback, Elite 11 finalist. Just beat American Heritage here in Miami, in Broward County. So this guy is rocket ship strapped to him. Miami's incoming quarterback. He comes in. You have Emory Williams, whose trajectory is a little different based on how he performed in the second half of that game, of the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And you have Judd Anderson, very talented, very skilled, someone that physically has passed the look test when you see him on Green Street. Now he just needs reps with the starters because he was mostly with the 4th team. You got all those 3 guys, and there's no starter that's ready to play in spring. So what that means to me is you're having a quarterback competition in spring to say who is going to be not only our backup quarterback for 2025, who's our quarterback of the future? Is it any of you 3? Is it one of you? So that's going to be very interesting, where you get Luke Nickel just strolling into campus, immediately getting reps with the first team, kind of like Brad Kaya back in 2014, for an example. Brad Kaya got here in the second period. He didn't get here for spring, but Luke Nickel gets here for spring immediately, I assume, is going to get first team reps. Judd Anderson is going to get first team reps. Emory, of course, will get first team reps. So we'll see who's the guy out of here. And if you come out of spring and say, man, Luke Nickel's the dude, he took it to it like a duck to water. He looks like a starter out there as a true freshman. Or man, Judd Anderson, we knew he had tools, but when he was put with the starters, he was dealing. This guy has got a huge upside. He looks like Carson Beck. And then you bring in Carson Beck, put that guy in the second quarterback chair. Now you have a logical succession plan going into next year, and you have a guy with the confidence that he's played with the starters. And it's hard to do that if you do have a starting quarterback ready to play. So again, it's not intentional. It's not the ideal situation, but there's a silver lining to not having Beck in spring.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of these comments here.
Comments going insane here. Yeah.
Someone said, "Why do we have Brad Kaya on the screen?" That's Carson Beck, man. Brad didn't have that forearm, the forearm tattoos going on there.
Yeah,
that's just that's a Hayes Fawcett edit. So,
oh, there you go, Hayes. Yeah, and here's I'm curious. And Mario loves rankings. Mario's the first guy to talk about rankings. I mean, this year the recruiting class wasn't ranked as high as he likes it, so he didn't talk about rankings too much with that one. But when Mario gets a top 10 class or a top 5 class, he's singing it from the rafters. This is probably going to be the number 1 portal class in the country, I have to believe. I don't know if they've adjusted the rankings.
Well, I mean, so it's interesting because it looks like 247 has Miami at number 9 now. On 3 had Miami at number 4 yesterday morning. We talked about it at the show. They had him at number 4 before this. So the ranking system is, yeah. So I was just looking at a tweet here. Let me pull it up. By our boy Trenton Breeze actually tweeted it out. Let me pull it up. But yeah, on 3 had Miami at number 4 before this. So I'm thinking it has to be pretty.
And I'll say it myself. Miami has the best portal class in the country. Who could be better? We haven't even talked about Xavier Lucas, which, by the way, if he jumps in the portal here, again, NCAA and Wisconsin currently uncooperative, but we'll see how the whole thing plays out. He wants to leave. If you add Xavier Lucas to this portal class, he's going to be the number one corner in the portal the second he jumps in. I mean, borderline freshman All-America, 6'2", 200, running a 10.500. I got to believe he might be the top defensive recruit in the portal. So you might get the first on offense, first on defense. There you go. So read that tweet to me, Pete.
So Miami, according to Trenton Breeze, Miami is now a top 10 transfer class, according to 247. 4-star Carson Beck, number 1 overall. 4-star D lineman David Blaine, number 27 overall. CJ Daniels, 4-star, 63rd overall. Emmanuel Carnley, 78th overall, 4-star. Zachariah Poyser, 4-star, 81st overall. Charles Brantley, 96 overall, 4-star. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 top 100 players right there, including the number 1 overall in the portal. And then Ethan O'Connor as a 3-star, 132nd overall. I think a lot of people might agree that that's severely underrated, D. And then Bauman coming over from Tulane at tight end as 298 overall, and James Brockermeyer, 552.
All right, so Pete, real quick. First of all, pull up CanesInsight.com, man, because this thing is rolling. Pull up the Beck thread in the transfer portal board. But while you're doing that, I saw a Fox affiliate just reported that Beck signed for $4 million. I can say the Fox affiliate doesn't have sources. So I don't know who it is. Hopefully it's not a friend of mine that's reporting it wrong, but they're wrong. So if you see Fox affiliate, or really if you see anybody reporting what the NIL number is, I can tell you 99% they don't know what they're talking about. And that is you take that to the bank. They're wrong. So just know that when you read that report. So here we go. We got CanesInsight.com, 7 million posts and counting free. I mean, these Beck threads are absolutely on fire. We got how many pages? I just posted
9
right
pages
before we went on. So it's already
41 minutes there.
41 minutes, 9 pages of comments. Scroll down. Let's see if
let me take this Beck off the screen here.
There we go. See, we only need one Beck on the screen. Yeah, scroll down a little bit. Let's see what we got here. But this
is a dangerous exercise, D.
Yeah, no. It'll be safe for work, I think. But when there's nothing better than being on CanesInsight.com when you get a commit, because everybody posts the GIFs. Mostly safe for work, I think. There we go. We're safe for work here. Sign up today. It's free. I mean, obviously we go live every day, so you get your Canes fix here, but we're not on 24/7. CanesInsight.com, though, that is on 24/7. People are on it all day. Middle of the night, you can make a post and you'll start getting a lot of responses just because we got people in Africa. We got people in Asia.
One.
Yeah, there you go.
Look at this AI, Mario.
Oh, Mario, he looks a little, he's gained some weight.
Yeah, I don't know.
Come on, man. That's not.
Put some years on him, too. I don't know.
Yeah, Mario, man. You got to
AI. That's the Grok AI there.
You know what, though? That's what I was looking after not having a quarterback here for a while. I don't believe that Gabby actually said that one. That might have been a little Photoshop for our friend Gabby. Hold on. Someone's saying, hopefully D-Money will speak on it. Speak on what? This $4 million number? I'm telling you, whatever that was is wrong. Do not listen to that Fox affiliate. Whoever reported that is wrong. I can tell you with direct sourcing that whatever they're talking about, NIL number, is incorrect, is false. So don't listen to them. In fact, anytime you see people publicly reporting NIL numbers, they're almost always wrong. So the people that know, don't talk about it. I might find out. Again, we work for Kanes Connection, so I think we're pretty plugged into this situation. Don't listen to the Fox affiliate. But, P, why don't you get the Kanes Connection ready? Let's talk about some stuff here while I get some questions. So, look, there was a big narrative that Miami ran out of money, or Miami was not going to be able to compete in this modern NIL era now with the rev share and all these changes that have happened. Go down the list here, guys. You got CJ Daniels, an SEC wide receiver. You got a starting center. You got the number 2 defensive tackle in the portal. You got every single corner you wanted from the portal with possibly the number 1 corner to go. I mean, Carnley, Ethan O'Connor, Charles Brantley. These are elite portal. These are top of the line portal corners. You landed number 2 safety in the portal. So this is big game hunting here in the portal. I think Miami at one point had the highest average star rating in the portal. I haven't checked since Carson Beck committed. He's the highest rated player in the portal, so you imagine that went up. So Miami's playing with the big boys. And if you want to help Miami play with the big boys, canesconnection.com/CIS. Make sure you get that /CIS, canesconnection.com. Be part of the solution. Help us continue to land these impactful players in the portal. canesconnection.com/CIS. This is the way you can help the program directly and impact our success and make sure that we continue to build towards a team that year in, year out is relevant throughout the year. I like this feeling. I want more, obviously. We all want more. We want to finish stronger than we finish. But the best way to do that is to support canesconnection.com/CIS. You sign up with that /CIS. You get 20% off your first month. Plus, you have the regular Zoom calls, which are going to kick right up here for recruiting season. And it probably in a couple of weeks, maybe a week, I'll do my next private Zoom where I can give you information that you're not getting on the show because it's a public forum. So canesconnection.com/CIS, sign up. Make sure we continue to sign these elite players. Oh, you had a tweet pulled up there, Pete.
Yep, there it is again.
Explain to the people here. We're on audio too.
So Hannah Cavender has tweeted, "It's a great day to be a Miami Hurricane."
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Hannah. By the way, if you're not watching the women's basketball team, they're a great squad. I had a tough game on Sunday. They're traveling to Syracuse. I'm starting to interview some of these young ladies for the Storm Sessions show that I do with the University of Miami official. They're all studs, great grades, just great athletes. 11-4 and looking to add to that win total here in Syracuse. I think they'll be in town next Sunday. So make sure if you're in the area, support women's basketball. Take your daughter. I took mine, or your son, whoever, or your wife. It's a lot of fun. Women's basketball. Shout out to the Cavenders. Shout out to Hannah, who's not only contributed to the backcourt, but has helped solve Miami's backfield problems with the person lining up under center, her boyfriend, Carson Beck.
Sports says no Islas Canarias in Athens, Georgia. He came here for the croquetas and the great accident attorneys at Anajar and Levine.
Oh, sports, man. The check's in the mail. Pete, pull it up.
I'm going to do that now. Jeff Lynn's ELO tour, 2025 tour, says, "Is Kane's connection involved with Beck?" Indeed. Anyone on the team?
Yeah. Listen, this is the number one player in the portal. Not me talking. This is what he's ranked. He's the number one player in the portal on 247. He's the number one player in the portal on 3. You want to play with the big boys in that kind of caliber player, you got to pay up. canesconnection.com. Appreciate everybody who's listening. I know we got a lot of Kanes Connection members on this show. If you haven't signed up yet, canesconnection.com/CIS. In fact, I'm going to put the link in the chat because this is what it is, man. I mean, we're in 2025.
Juice Kane Tony says, if you're a top QB that ain't ready to go pro, come to death row.
I love it, man. I love it.
Might have to make those shirts, man. Hit me up.
Yeah. You don't want the offensive coordinator all in the video. It's just, Mario lets the court. You don't see Shannon Dawson and Mario Cristobal taking all the credit like Lincoln Riley does, right? They stay back and let the quarterback get all the shine. Guys,
again, 850 Kane. He's asking. Rumor there's a big time receiver that said if Beck commits, he'll come to Miami as well. Thoughts? We mentioned this earlier in the show, but Crawford, who had tweeted this out yesterday, and this was what I speculated. I think he worded the initial tweet a little poorly. He basically said someone's going to want to come and join him. It didn't sound like there's one that's already decided that he's coming to Miami and going to be coming. I agree with him. I think there will be another receiver that joins, and I agree with what D said earlier. Really like the group that's here. Think you need to add one more piece to the puzzle there, but he's a guy that receivers will want to come to play with.
Yep, the credibility is there. But to me, look, we need to add one more. But to me, my mind immediately goes to JoJo, Nye Carr, Elijah Lofton. At one point, you got to play the talented guys that you bring in, right? Restrepo was a homegrown guy. Jacoby was a homegrown guy. Arroyo was a homegrown guy. We've been recruiting at a high level there. I'm getting to this question here from Anthony. We've been recruiting at a high level there, and those guys just got to play. And I think this is their opportunity, and they got a quarterback who can get them the ball. So Anthony Easton asking, how come Georgia didn't pay up to keep him? So a couple things. So I listened to a few Georgia podcasts, went through the boards, just to kind of get the Georgia perspective. I think Georgia's perspective is this. This guy's been there since 2020. Everybody he came in with is gone. He's fought when you're in that seat for a long time, it's a hot seat. You fight with the fan base. there's kind of things that need a refresher. He got blamed for a lot of things that some was his fault, some was probably not his fault. So it was a lot of built up just history when you're there at a program for so long in such a hot seat. Gunnar Stockton, they're happy with how he played in the bowl game and in the SEC championship game. Me personally, I don't think Gunnar Stockton is that good. Pete, I don't know. You like Gunnar Stockton?
He's fine. I mean,
nothing special, but he's got 2 years of eligibility and he's healthy. If you bring back Carson Beck, spend a ton of money on him. Now, Gunnar Stockton, who you feel pretty good about, is starting in the spring, but then getting benched. And then he's got maybe transfers. He got 2 years of eligibility left. So I think they just said, listen, we'll go with the guy we have who's healthy, who's young, and we'll spend the money that we would spend on Carson Beck to get a Noah Thomas and Zechariah Branch. They got probably the 2 most expensive receivers in the portal, at least 2 of the most expensive receivers in the portal. You can't do that if all the money's going to Carson Beck, who's injured. So I think it just made more sense for Miami, who didn't have a Gunnar Stockton in line. Gunnar Stockton's also close to Mike Bobo. I think there's a family tie there. So he was just the guy.
Which, by the way, we're doing the stuff with Group Chat Sports D, and we done some Georgia related stuff, and Georgia fans do not like Mike Bobo one bit. So that people can say what they want about Shannon Dawson. Obviously, it helped having Cam Ward this year, but it was the number 1 offense in the country. I feel like he's an upgrade over Bobo in terms of if you're a quarterback, what you'd like to do.
I think this offense, by the way, 4,000 on right now. Appreciate everybody. If you're new to the show, like and subscribe. Ask around about us. Ask who's been talking about Carson Beck since before anybody was talking about Carson Beck. It was this show. If you know, you know. Like and subscribe to this show. We're on daily. Kane's Insight Daily Podcast. Appreciate everybody. So, yeah, Bobo stinks. Georgia's offense last year. Okay, let's break it down. All right. They were 102nd in rushing yards per game. Let me just pull up the stats.
That's crazy.
Bear with me, guys, because I wasn't planning to talk about this. We didn't do a show prep. I mean, this commitment dropped as me and Pete were just chilling here.
Luke Nichols' brother just committed, by the way.
Yeah, so his Nichols brother, what's his first name, Pete? I don't want to butcher it.
Jake
Nickel, big 260-pound tight end at UAB. I think he signed originally with Auburn out of high school, but he's at UAB. Big tight end, blocking tight end, has some experience. He'll come in. We have 105 scholarships now. Obviously, he has a connection to his brother. Bring him in the fold, potentially getting some snaps that Cam McCormick had. So, makes sense. Good fit. Tight end's a position that Miami uses a lot of guys. You lose McCormick, you lose Arroyo, you lose Riley Williams, you bring in Alex Bowman, but you need more. So that's something to keep an eye on. So
I have here. Let me pull up between Michigan State and UAB.
Okay, so here's a stat that I want to share with you guys. So Georgia, when we think about Georgia, we think of Nick Chubb, right? Sony Michel. These are the guys that you think about when you think about Georgia in this modern era. Running the ball, pounding it, right? Here's some stats. This year, Georgia in yards per rush, 3.9 yards per rush, 84th in the country. 3.9, tied with UMass. 3.9 yards per rush. Miami, 5.6 yards per rush. That's 5th in the country. Okay, so you're about 5th in the country, Miami, in yards per rush. Georgia, who we associate with pounding the ball, tough and physical, 84th in the country. Okay,
crazy.
Now, rushing yards total, right? Rushing yards per game. Miami in rushing yards per game, 27th, 185 yards per game. And remember, 27th in rushing yards per game when they were throwing the ball all over the yard. It's not like they were 27th because they were running it every time. That's why they were so high in yards per rush attempt. Miami is 27th in rushing total, even with Cam Ward being the best passer in the country. Georgia, 102nd, guys. So that shows you, we like to talk about trucks and trailers. I hear this. I stole this from the Move the Sticks podcast, NFL.com podcast with former scouts. They coined this term, and we've seen it in other podcasts, and I'm stealing it. There's quarterbacks who are trucks, who carry their team. And there are quarterbacks who are trailers. Maybe you call them game managers. They just kind of keep the team carries them, and they just keep the the thing rolling. Carson Beck this year carried that Georgia offense. He carried that Georgia offense. People talk about the picks and everything else. When your running game's that bad and your receivers lead the nation in drop passes and your quarterback still throws for 3,500 yards and 28 touchdowns, who do you think is driving the show? Who's carrying that team? You tell me. So we associate Georgia with this, like, just plug in the quarterback and they're going to roll. That's not this Georgia team. Carson Beck carried them. Last year when they had better receivers, Ladd McConkey, Brock Bowers, he was part of the machine, but he was also the most efficient quarterback in the country, projected as a number one quarterback going into this next draft. So keep all of this in perspective when you evaluate this fit. I think we've landed the most talented quarterback in the ACC, and he'll battle with Klubnik to be the best quarterback in the conference.
I wanted to show this tweet that Kane's Women's Hoops account just tweeted out, and I can't play the video because we'll get hit with copyright, but just wanted to show the tweet. This is incredible work. Like 15 minutes ago, they tweeted out. It's a video that says, take a look at the top assists from Hannah Cavendish this season.
Oh, man. Shout out to whoever runs that account.
Great tweet, man.
Unbelievable.
Great tweet.
Unbelievable. Over 4,000 on. Like and subscribe.
D, by the way, I have Islas Canarias ready to go. I don't think we
first I'll shout out to Gio. Just upgraded my Kanes Connection monthly subscription to Hall of Fame. Let's go. You're the man, Gio. You're part of the solution. Guys, there's not that much stuff that we can do to impact the team. We sit in the crowd and we hope it goes well, but we can't do anything about it, right? Kanes Connection allows you to do something about it. It's no secret. It's not rocket science. You have more money to pay players, you get better players. That's the name of the game. Gio, appreciate you. Everybody has signed up for canesconnection.com/CIS. Appreciate you. Pete, drop the link once again. I'll drop it here in the comments because this is absolutely the most important thing.
Yeah, you guys have to copy and paste it. Unfortunately, it's not a clickable link there, but
hey, they're big boys. They can copy and paste, and girls. Met some female Canes Insight fans at the bowl game. Appreciate it all. So one thing in Georgia, if you go to Georgia to Miami, you get some things better, you get some things worse. Offensive line improved. Believe it or not, we have a better offensive line than Georgia. That's how far it's come. Running backs improved. Wide receivers improved. Defense, probably not. Probably not, but we're getting better. One thing that you definitely have better in Miami than in Georgia, Cuban food. The best Cuban food in America, in the world, Islas Canarias. Right there. Carson Beck's going to University of Miami. 5-minute drive south. You can go to Dadeland Mall, the Dining Pavilion, Islas Canarias Express, all of the classic Cuban food from Islas Canarias that's voted best in Miami every single year. The croquetas have won countless awards. You can get all of that at the Dining Pavilion in Dadeland Mall. The classic ham all the way down to the kimchi and the chickpea and all the modern croquetas. But, of course, you get the classics. The croquetas from Gio. Appreciate that. The best in the world right there. The bistec empanizado, the fried steak, the breaded fried steak. I mean, some of the best in the world. Huge portions. I mean, you order for one, but you eat for two. It is absolutely incredible. Always a long line because everybody's there, but it moves fast because they got a great staff with smiling faces. Shout out to Islas Canarias, the #1 Cuban restaurant in the world and a close friend of our program here.
Yeah, Chemo saying Pete D Money just got nickel brother the tight end. Yeah, we just talked about that a moment ago here on the show. If you're just joining us, we've been on for almost 45 minutes here, so you can go back and rewind and see what we said from the beginning.
Well, Pete, why don't we talk about because there's a lot going on, man. Like I said, we didn't really prep for this one because the news dropped pretty quick. But Miami did also.
Here you go again, lying, D Money, saying you weren't ready for it. That's.
Oh, I mean, we've been ready for a minute, but we didn't expect the news to drop right before we came on.
True, we were getting ready to record our other show.
Yeah. So, but let me just let me pull up here a story that kind of went under the radar for obvious reasons. But the Miami Hurricanes hired a new member of their personnel department, and I apologize for butchering this name. I promise you I will learn it and get it right. But lots happening today. Keiki Misipeka. Is that right, Pete? You've dealt with some Polynesians in your
let me look at the let me look at it real quick. Where's the
It's on Canes Inside. So anyways, okay. The Canes hired Hawaii's GM Keiki Misipeka. This is a native of Pago Pago, American Samoa. He He was a player. He played in both the CFL and the American National Rugby League. So a two-sport professional. Coached running backs for 2 years at Hawaii before becoming the GM this year. And this to me is the most interesting. He worked with the NFL's Player Pathway Program as a scout for the South Pacific, not just Samoa, but also Australia, New Zealand. He was trying to find guys there to play potentially in the NFL. The left tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles, Jordan Mailata. I may have butchered that one too, but he was a rugby player, just a monster athlete who never played football before he got drafted to the NFL. Ended up getting developed by former Hurricane offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland, now the left tackle for the Eagles. There's a lot of guys with that ability playing rugby, playing other sports, maybe playing football in the South Pacific. And we have just a direct line to those players with Miami's new personnel hire. 105 roster spots. I wonder how many of these kind of guys who are more long-term projects we are going to be stacking. I hope a lot. And I hope we build that nucleus of players and a community of Polynesian players that they feel comfortable coming to Miami. Of course, Penei Sewell, top 10 pick, best right tackle in the league. Francisco Mauanoa onto the league now. Francis Mauanoa, top 10 pick likely next year. Keep that pipeline going. You got Kenye Pepe, Miami's number one offensive tackle target this year. He's also of Polynesian descent. We got S.J. Alafatuli. They're probably the best player signed in last year's class overall, although Hayden Lowe looks pretty good for the Army All-American game, Navy All-American game. We could talk about that. But this move ensures that pipeline will continue at the University of Miami and possibly expand to where not only are you getting high-profile high school kids, you might be grabbing guys that are rugby players or just, they need some polish. Stack them on the 105. Let guys like Alex Mirabal get their hands on them and develop them from scratch. And now you got a really, really interesting situation at Miami to supplement your Southeast recruiting, your American recruiting. Go ahead.
These guys, sorry, I've done this a couple of times today. I'm excited about adding more of these guys to the roster potentially, but they're more loyal for the most part. And you bring a guy like that who's not from that culture, right, of football, right? And you can kind of develop him, and he's not looking to maybe jump after a year or two, right? So I think that element of it, if you're bringing a guy who you understand is more of a project, not a guy who's going to play right away, you don't want to worry about, man, I'm going to fight off these other schools to keep this kid. Because you lay out the plan early and you tell them this is a multi-year development project with you. And they have that understanding going in, especially if there's someone who's newer to the game.
100%. By the way, comment here from WA. I doubt Mario got Beck. Cavender did. Look, I mean, there's no question that the relationship and the ties to Miami, including the fact that he's from Florida, he looked at Miami out of high school, that all played a role. But I think football-wise, when you look at what Cam Ward did, and you look at the fact that you have 4 returning starters on the offensive line, the football case is quite easy to make. And I think that played a bigger role than maybe people think. So keep that in mind. It's not just about the emotional side, the fact that his girlfriend's here, yada, yada, yada. I'm sure that all played into it. But from a football, if you're talking just football, where is their fault in this decision? If you're trying to remake your stock, you're following the path of the number 1 overall pick potentially in Cam Ward. You have 4 offensive linemen coming back. You do need to rebuild the skill a little bit, but you still have, Fletcher, Lyle, Alex Bauman's in place. JoJo Trader's looking good. CJ Daniels, a proven SEC receiver who's probably going to be better this year with another year of health and is a veteran. There's stuff here, and there's going to be more added over the course of the spring based on the fact that you have a quarterback that you can sell to people. What else we got? We're rolling here.
They're saying something about McAfee's requesting Kane's inside. I don't know if that's we've had a couple comments here. I don't know if that's happening.
McAfee.
Yeah, I mean they're I think they're on right now.
Holler at me. Was really? Hold on a second. Let me go on Twitter. Am I trying to?
You might be getting trolled. Who knows?
Yeah. Check my phone. What's that McAfee stuff all about? Let me know. Because yeah, I'm happy to be on McAfee. We'll talk WWE Raw.
Maybe they saw your Nostradamus video the other day.
Yeah. Oh, here, man, Twitter's is on fire though. I mean, the national relevance of this is hard to understate. I mean, you got Pate talking about it. You got Kevin Clark all over there. You got people talking already about the Notre Dame game. our boy Brett McMurphy's talking about the first game against Notre Dame. I'm just scrolling.
That's, to me, we can talk about a lot of different things with Beck, but we're bringing in a guy who we're gonna get hit with copyright now because of that music right there. But he's off today, no show. I think they may have been trolling you.
Oh, that got my attention.
But we're playing Notre Dame and Florida in the first two games. You got to bring in a guy who's not going to be rattled in those games.
Yeah, this guy's played. I mean, last year, which was not the best year in the world. He beat Texas. His team beat Texas. I guess he played only a half. No, but they beat him twice, right? Didn't they play Texas twice? I'm losing track with this playoff.
Who, Georgia?
Yeah.
Yeah, they beat him in the SEC championship, no?
But they beat him. Didn't they play him during the season too?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's beaten Georgia. He beat Tennessee. This guy's had some – I'm going through his game log this year just to get a feel for some of the games that he's won. So 31-17 over Tennessee, top 10 team. Won an overtime game. Beat Texas 30-15. He really didn't play very well in that game. Clemson 34-3, just completely smashed them. So it was really just this stretch here where he struggled quite a bit between Ole Miss, Florida, and Texas, and then he got it going against Tennessee, 2 touchdowns. I mean, look at this. So if you look at his last big game, right, that he played the full game, Texas, he got hurt in the middle of it. So the last big game that he played the full game was against Tennessee, November 16th, 25 for 30, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he ran for a touchdown. So that's his last big game. Appreciate you, Caesar. King Beck and Cavender Queen. Miami stays hot. There you go. Here's this. It's a job. Beck isn't that good, guys. I mean, if we're comparing him to Cam Ward, I would say he's not Cam Ward, right? If we're comparing him to everybody else, he's the number 1 ranked player in the portal. And that includes players who already pick schools. So of all the players who have entered the transfer portal, and Pete, how many is it? Like thousands?
Thousands, yeah.
So of all the players who have entered...
I thought I saw north of 7,000 or something like that.
Let me see. How many players have entered the transfer portal? So as of 7 days... Okay. So just, so it's not done yet. Last year, there were 11,000 players entering the portal between now and spring. Let's say,
I heard a couple weeks ago that it was north of 7,000. So
okay, so of all those thousands of players enter the portal, the number 1 ranked player to enter the portal just committed to the University of Miami. So is he as good as Cam Ward? I would say no. He might be. People thought he was better before the season, so I'm not going to foreclose that possibility. Let's see what he has. I think Cam Ward is the best quarterback in college this year, and best player at UM since Sean Taylor. It's going to be hard to beat, but if you compare him to everybody else, the thousands of players that have entered the transfer portal, he's ranked number 1 by 247, by on 3. So, this is not me trying to just hype people up, although obviously I'm excited, especially given the alternative. But this is how he's perceived nationally. And I think it's January 10th. We don't play until Labor Day. That's, 8 full months. And I think it's important to realize that hype and offseason relevance and stuff, yes, it's meaningless to an extent, but it's not, because you got to recruit players, you got to raise money, you got to sell tickets, you got to do a lot of that stuff. You got to get guys to come in the portal that maybe are in the spring period. So the fact that we're going to be nationally relevant for that entire offseason, we'll be going live every weekday here on Kane's Insight Daily Podcast. That's meaningful. It has value. Look, is that meaningful as winning games and not losing, 3 out of your last 4? No. But there's a meaning and a relevance meaning and importance to being relevant for an entire offseason and getting momentum as a program. And I think this, at a minimum, accomplishes that, because when they do those preseason rankings, Miami's going to be there, and they're going to probably get pretty high. And this move is the biggest reason.
Eric Lancaster, appreciate your support, man. Interested to see if we see more I formation or under center plays.
Great question, Eric. And I thought the same thing. When you go watch Carson Beck's highlights last year, he was under center a lot. Now, look, he's going to an air raid system with Shannon Dawson. You didn't see Cam Ward under center a lot. But I think one reason you didn't see Cam Ward under center a lot, aside from the fact that, that's not Dawson's forte, is Cam Ward's not that good under center. He's got smaller hands. He's used to playing in the shotgun, so that was an unfamiliar position for him. Remember when he fumbled the snap against Louisville when we were trying to kneel the ball? So that's not really where he's comfortable. Beck has much more experience under center, and he's actually very, very good play action passer. Go watch some of his highlights and notice how many times under center play action, old school Norv Turner type plays he runs. Miami has two guys that I would consider legitimate fullback super weapons. Elijah Lofton, Mark Fletcher. Of course, Mark Fletcher's day job is a tailback. Elijah Lofton's day job is tight end. But I think both of those guys, and maybe Brock Schott, the true freshman, if he develops, he'll be here in spring, are like, they can moonlight as fullbacks. They can lead block. They can make collision blocks, and they can pass protect like a fullback if they need to, and if they can run short yardage. So you have really, really unique weapons at fullback if you choose to do that. And because they are so multidimensional, they open up a lot of different possibilities. So I think you're not going to go run the 2000 Kanes offense with Carson Beck, but you can have elements of things you did with Najee Davenport, for example, that you can do with guys like Fletcher and Lofton. And I think that is very interesting to me because that probably suits Beck more than it suited a Cam Ward.
PJ Shaw says, how serious is he going to be? Money and fame in Miami are quite the distraction. Not the same personality as Cam. I mean, look, I think it's a valid question. Something that people are going to bring up a lot, but I said this at the beginning of the show if you weren't watching. There's a real motivation for him to move himself back up this board, which right now he is probably, if he were to come out right now, probably a mid-round pick, right? With a lot to prove because the season didn't go right for him. The injury happened. And yes, the interview where he, said the stuff that he would probably take back now, that some people would think he was not, serious enough about football. But that sort of stuff, you change that narrative with a good season. If he wasn't serious, he would have just gone pro, gotten drafted because he still would have been drafted, been a pro and called it a day. Said, look, I've done everything I want to do at the college level. But I think it takes a lot for him to say, look, I'll come back. Yes, again, we've said it. We're not going to discredit the element of the relationship, right? That's a great thing. But guess what? I'd rather him have a girlfriend down here in Miami than be running around with all the money and be single. So that's my take on it.
Keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
And Pete, you made this point earlier, and I'll steal it and restate it. This guy went 24-3 in the SEC for the program that was the hottest program in the country with all the expectations in the world. It's not like this guy was just shaking his ass on TikTok. You know what I mean? Like, he was playing big time football with big time expectations and being entrusted with the football. So, I think 24-year-old with this kind of experience is going to be a lot more ready to rock than the average player, even with all the other stuff. So, great point by Tidal Creek Photo. Media's all over this move, way more than material to Oklahoma. Miami's just different and more polarizing and creates more NIL.
It's also the Beck aspect of it, too. Miami is bigger, but Beck is, that's what we've said. Beck coming from Georgia, a guy who's been in the spotlight, is different than someone coming from Washington State, which Mateer was.
Yeah, by the way, Kyle McCord to the NFL, which I think cements, not that I think Beck would probably been better anyways, but cements that, I
don't know if he had any more eligibility.
He was trying to get a waiver of some sort,
he? Okay.
But he withdrew the waiver and he decided to go pro. JG saying, you guys obviously don't know Carson Beck. He's not that guy. You will find out soon. This is not, look, I don't work for 247. I don't work for On3. I'm not one of the various national media guys on Twitter that all say this guy's the best player on the portal, right? So it's not like me hyping someone up that no one's ever heard of. This is the national perception of the player who has been on the national spotlight for a while, and everybody saw what he can do. It's not like some MAC player that a couple guys had seen. Now, we said at the top of the show, real weaknesses with this player. He's injured. He had a down year last year, threw too many picks, particularly in the middle of the season. And the leadership stuff, the love of the game, those are real questions that scouts have. It's not like, it's not out of thin air. So do I think he's going to just pick up where Cam Ward left off, be the leader that Cam Ward was, be the player that Cam Ward was? If you ask me, I don't project that. Do I think with all of his faults, even taking them as they are, he's going to be the best talent in the ACC from a quarterback perspective, and he'll be top 3 at worst as a quarterback in the ACC. Of course, I think that's what's going to happen. He would have been that last year based on his down year. So, I'm a big believer that it's about perspective. And if you're evaluating him as the number 1 overall pick of the NFL, which was what a lot of, like when we watched Carson Beck this year, we were watching him, at least I was, Pete, I'm sure you were too, and most people were saying, this is the guy that's projected as the number 1 overall pick. This is the guy that's projected as the number 1 quarterback. Is he that? I don't know. This is a bad throw, this and that. And I was watching him saying, Cam Ward, I'd rather have Cam Ward, right? That's how I looked at Carson Beck this year. Now, if I'm looking at him and saying, can this guy who's 6'4", 225, athletic, rocket arm, great accuracy, highly productive, highly experienced, get it done in the Atlantic Coast Conference? It's a lot different analysis. And the answer to that is, do I expect that? Absolutely, I expect that. And I think pretty much everybody expects that. We could be dead wrong. He could have a TVD-like collapse. He could still be hurt. He could never be the same with his arm. We don't know these things. That's why they play the games. But this is not me or Pete hyping up somebody that is not being hyped up on every single national media outlet.
Oh, and forget national media. Let me pull up the thing I had yesterday from Jim Nagy from October, where he was basically saying, look, I see that there's some media people that are bailing on Carson Beck, but he's pretty much still a big-time guy in our eyes.
Yeah, so here, let me respond. So Bagging Up saying rocket arm. Here's what I would recommend Bagging Up. Go to the Kanes Insight story that I posted on the website, 7 million posts and counting, kanesinsight.com. Look at the tweets from Jim Nagy, who runs a Senior Bowl, very plugged in the NFL. He posted some throws from Carson Beck, and we won't. Oh, there we go. Well,
we can show it. This is not it's not TV thing here. Look,
I think it is. If we get copyright, Pete, I'm gonna kill you.
We showed it the other day, and nothing happened. So
all right. Well, there you go. So there you go. This is a big time NFL throw by Carson Beck. These throws are why most scouts are still riding with Beck when some in the media are bailing. Again, that's NFL perspective. And then as far as another question here, or another comment from JG, listen to the nervous in their voice, athletic. Listen, I don't know if you're in nerves. I'm pretty sure I had the biggest smile on my face ever when this news broke. But athletic, if you wanted to see his athleticism, I would recommend go look at the game against Clemson, the season opener this year. Watch him run around that front and then make a play. Again, this is Clemson, the team that just won the conference that Miami is trying to win. He looked plenty athletic in that particular game, especially as a 6'4", 225-pound pocket passer.
Another tweet here from Jim Nagy. He says, impressive bounce back performance by Georgia quarterback Carson Beck against the Vols. NFL evaluators and Senior Bowl are still high on Beck because his good tape is starter level stuff. Few guys have Beck's size and have these sort of twitchy feet. One of the quickest releases in this year's draft and the ability to layer the ball. Dogs have plenty of big games left for Beck to impress scouts. And this was November 18th. So this was less than 2 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is NFL, right? So guys, Miami in the second half of the Pop-Tarts Bowl averaged 1.9 yards per pass. Now we're getting a guy who averaged 9.5 yards per pass in 23 in the SEC. 9.5. That's the same as Cam this year. Okay, so the projection for the Miami Hurricanes football team from now to where it was 5 days ago is profound, the difference. And it's hard to put into words, quite frankly, because it was looking very bleak. And now it is, you got a chance. And you certainly are going to stay relevant, which is that to me is a very, very important factor for this program, which has not been relevant for so long and was relevant this season, even with the disappointing finish. Miami was relevant this year, right? Our logo was on the TV the whole year. When little kids, and I know this because I see my kids and their friends pick teams, Miami's a team they pick because they want to use the player, Restrepo and Cam Ward, guys with 90 ratings, right? A team that's ranked good in the game. It sounds so stupid, but this is how you stay culturally relevant, man. This is part of the deal. This is not just for fun. You have to be in the conversation. That's how kids choose your school. It's about your brand recognition. Our brand was there this year, and it needs to stay there. And a guy like Carson Beck ensures that at least in the offseason, our brand is going to be right there in the conversation all year. Someone else had a comment I lost it, that Luke Nickel's going to be on Georgia by April. Luke Nickel, Miami's top quarterback recruit. That's not true at all. I mean, Luke Nickel chose Miami because he wanted to choose Miami. Georgia chose Ryan Montgomery, a quarterback from Ohio, when they easily could have had Luke Nickel. They chose someone else. Miami chose Luke Nickel. Luke Nickel chose Miami. He blew up after that, which is a credit to Coach Dawson's scouting. But he's going to walk into Miami here in spring and get starter reps. By the way, his brother, like we mentioned earlier, just committed to Miami as a transfer tight end from UAB. So if you're Luke Nickel, this to me is an absolute blessing because the path is wide open in 2026 to start. And by the way, you may be one snap away from starting this year. So perfect opportunity for Luke Nickel, and he's going to have a ton of reps in spring to truly develop. Stephen Avea, appreciate your support, asking what positions do we look for in spring portal? I would say the key is going to be just evaluating the spring, right? So you got to see who gets hurt, right? Who's better than we thought as a young player? Who's maybe not as ready as we thought? And then you adjust to that. So I'd be looking at running back, seeing how that situation, obviously you hope that the two top guys stay healthy and Pringle stays healthy. And you want to see how Pringle does. Do you need another guy for depth? Probably. That might be an after spring move where you bring in someone at least for depth. If you lose one of the top two guys, maybe more. Again, hopefully not. Tight end, we did add nickel, but maybe, we'll see how that position looks. Wide receiver, right? A premier wide receiver that would want to play with a player like Carson Beck that didn't have that sort of quarterback to look to in this window because, of course, Beck's now signing here January 10th. Most of the top receivers off the board. So, and then a comment from Kane's Fan Attack, need an experienced linebacker. That'd be my top priority. I think we need a linebacker that's going to make an impact. Great question from One Cadet 23. Why are we overlooking Judd Anderson? Do we think he just can't start here? Monster arm, sneaky athlete at 6'6". This is a great opportunity for Judd Anderson this spring. He's going to get a lot of reps. I saw, Pete, you were there too. I saw numerous practices this spring and fall with Judd featured. In spring, you had Poffenbarger and Emery and Ward as you did in fall. I think was Jakari here in spring as well, or he had already left. I don't remember. But Judd's always been fourth string.
Pretty sure he was there in the spring.
Yeah, so he might have been fifth string in spring and then fourth string in fall. So Judd always had three scholarship quarterbacks.
Yeah, he was, because after Ward in the spring game, everyone was.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so Judd was fifth string in the spring and then fourth string in the fall because he had scholarship quarterbacks with more experience ahead of him. So he didn't really get that many reps with real players that are scholarship, going to make an impact on the field players. He had walk-ons around him, which these guys are good football players by normal standards, but they're not, ACC players. And he went against ACC walk-on type defenses. So you didn't really get a good feel for him. But when he did play, he made plays. He was not a deer in headlights. I was surprised by how good he played with some of these walk-ons. He had drives. He made touchdown throws. When he had Robbie Washington, he made some touchdown throws to him. And then the tools are all there with Judd Anderson. 6'6", maybe even 6'7", smooth athlete, double on the basketball court, really can move.
That's what caught my attention when I saw him.
The smoothness, right? The fluidity.
Yeah. Especially for being that size. But like out of all the guys outside of Ward, he was the one, and it was always the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes of practice that I got to watch. But he just looked the smoothest out of all of them by far.
Yep.
And was making good throws when it was 7-on-7 work. And it looked effortless for him. Again, how that translates to the field once the pads come on, I don't know. But in terms of the actual skill set, I liked what I saw there.
Yeah, 100%. And he can run. He's not, Vince Young or anything like that. But Judd Anderson, if he has clear daylight, he can get a 40-yard gain. He has those kind of wheels. He really can run. And he has a good arm, smooth delivery. The question with Judd Anderson is going to be mental processing, because he was a big man in high school as far as basketball. So it's not like he was a guard making decisions. Then on the football field, he's a wing T quarterback, only really has 2 years as a passing quarterback. So as far as ball in the hands, making decisions, he has limited experience. Will he be able to do that with the real players, coming after him? We'll find out in spring. Huge opportunity for Judd Anderson to show that he's not Luke Nickel or Emery as the quarterback of the future. Eric, man, appreciate you. Eric Lancaster asking, do we have a deep shot wide receiver? Tired of seeing balls go to JG. He's like a more fluid Wiggins, but he's more of a post guy in my opinion. Who would Pete look to sign on this roster as a former agent? So 2 questions. First one I'll take, and obviously the second one's for you, Pete. As far as a deep threat, I would say the best one right now from a practice standpoint would be Nye Carr. He caught a lot of deep balls in spring and fall. JoJo Trader did as well. So we'll see how that goes now that they're elevating their playing time more with the ones. But those would be the 2 guys I look to, and that could also be a position that you look to add in the spring portal. So
and it was interesting because last year, for as good as Ward was and as explosive as this offense was, they weren't hitting any deep balls, really. It was a lot of yards after catch, right? So in terms of, who would I add to the roster? I think Eric Singleton would have been perfect addition, man. I think that would have been the one to me. I don't know. I think you kind of agree with me on this. I don't think Zachariah Branch would have necessarily been the answer. It would have been a great addition, and obviously having him as a weapon would have been nice, but I don't think he would have filled that role necessarily either. I think he's more of a gadget guy. It's hard for me to just sit here and start speculating on names that are at other schools right now. But it's got to, I agree with you. That's the profile that you're looking for, is a guy who can go up and get it, because even Horton had the profile of a deep ball guy, but he really wasn't that.
No. Well, in practice he did a lot,
but practice,
it didn't happen in the
I know
games.
what you're saying.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
Listen, he could go do that at Alabama and be that, but for whatever reason, that wasn't what it was here.
No, definitely not. So, we'll see what happens with that position. Again, I think you're much, much, much more likely to add a big-time wide receiver from the portal because of this particular move. Now, listen, there's only so much money, right? You spent a lot on your defense, and you spent a lot on this number 1 overall player in the portal. That's why I say canesconnection.com/CIS if you want to support Hurricanes Athletics and get that pie a little bigger. But I think they will look for a receiver. But I think you got to look in-house and say which, you're bringing Malachi Toney. I don't know if he's a deep threat type receiver like you're talking about, but someone who's going to make an impact. Josh Moore, big receiver. Dalen Upshaw. You sign a lot of really talented receivers. I want to see what those guys can do in spring. It's kind of like we talked about with quarterback, right? The young quarterbacks can get a chance to show what they can do in spring. The young receivers will also get a chance to do it with what they can do in spring. And then you see, maybe we don't need another receiver. Probably will add one, but you'll know much more about what these younger receivers are about after spring practice. This is F1 Kane saying, I think Lofton will put up monster numbers with Beck. Beck likes tight ends. Yeah. I mean, look, again, no one's Brock Bowers. He is one of the most unique players we've ever seen. But it's funny. So I'm glad you brought this up, F1 Kane. Appreciate the question. Richard saying the same thing. Again, Brock Bowers is unique, right? He is going to be maybe one of, people talk about gold jacket based on his rookie production. So I don't want to compare and say this player that comes along very rarely is going to be replaced. But here's what I'll say. And I'll go back to Aaron Hernandez. My comp for Brock Bowers has always been Aaron Hernandez. And I know we can't talk about Aaron Hernandez because he's a, maniac serial killer. But the football player of Aaron Hernandez was very unique because he was not that tall, but he was extremely quick, great receiver, and also could run the ball. Aaron Hernandez, towards the end of his career in the NFL, was taking handoffs, which made him very unique. Brock Bowers, same thing. Not the tallest tight end, longest tight end, but somebody who can run the ball. You can hand him the ball and he can run. Unique skill set. Elijah Lofton can run, folks. I've been saying it. His natural position might be running back. He killed us in the spring. Second scrimmage going against the first team. He ran for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns because we were down running backs and he played halfback. So Elijah Lofton can run. So again, I'm not saying Elijah Lofton is Aaron Hernandez. I'm not saying Elijah Lofton is Brock Bowers. But that's the style of back he is because of his height, because of his receiving ability, and the fact that he could take handoffs and do something with it. So Beck has experience with a player that has a similar profile to an Elijah Lofton. So that's a nice carryover from something that Beck is used to. So I appreciate that question. What are you laughing about, Pete?
We got a comment here from the great Javier Obregon. After tomorrow's debut on the pitch, what are the changes P3Z hits the transfer portal?
That's for you.
Yeah. No, I'm never hitting the portal, man. Shout out to the Obregon family.
Shout out to the Obregon family. Shout out to everybody in the family. Hey, Javi, we need some stuff for this studio. So text me, because Pete was supposed to text you like 2 weeks ago with something we needed for the studio, and he keeps forgetting. So you text us, and I'll get you a proposal by the time I get off the show. Chris Brown saying they said it takes 9 months to properly heal. If everything goes good, I think that's for a Tommy John surgery. Brock Purdy, like Paul Edison says here, was 6 months, which should put Beck throwing in May. That's what all the reports are, is that Beck will be throwing in May at least. And that is the Brock Purdy injury that he had. So again, every injury is different, but I think that's what we're really talking about.
Paul Idson's been in the chat saying that that Carson Beck should have gone to Ohio State, that he's only coming because of his girlfriend.
I mean, Ohio State has Julian Sain, young quarterback. They also have Tavian St. Clair, who was a 5-star quarterback in this past class. Big physical, probably college-ready quarterback physically. We'll see how he plays, but I think that's the direction they're going. I personally, Julian Sain, he threw one throw in that Tennessee game, and it looked like eye-poppingly bad. If you guys saw that throw I'm talking about from Julian Sain, he didn't look that big either. I don't think he's the most physically talented guy, really smart guy, good IQ. I don't know if he's the guy of the future, but I guess they'll have the young players battle there at Ohio State. Who knows what happens with Quinn Ewers if he comes back. But we know one guy's off the table, and that's Carson Beck. But I think Ohio State will probably go in the direction of young quarterbacks. One thing I want to point out, and we'll talk about this more, is the 2025 quarterback class, to me, is the best quarterback class coming out of high school that I can ever remember. Just watching their highlights, in some cases watching their full games, looking at their specs, looking at their ratings, looking at their stats. Just a loaded class. Luke Nickel was a 3-star, right? And he's a stud. We think he's the quarterback of the future potentially. So a lot of teams, in my view, added impact young quarterbacks this class. So that means 2 things. Number one, some of those guys might enter the portal because it doesn't go their way. We've seen a lot of young, talented quarterbacks enter the portal because there's only one spot. So because so many guys are coming into the college game at once, you could see some of them come back on the market. So maybe a young, talented portal quarterback you can grab if it doesn't work out with Luke Nickel. Not this year, but maybe next year. Also, some of these young quarterbacks are going to either block transfers from coming to these schools or push guys into the portal. So the portal market is going to be very interesting because of this influx of young talent coming from the class of 2025 at quarterback. Of course, from Miami, we got Luke Nickel from that class. So that's a very, very good development for the Canes. But just keep an eye on that, because I think right now, Pete, let's talk about this one. Quarterback play in college, and guys, tell me in the comments if I'm wrong about this or if you have thoughts. Quarterback play in the college game this year is abysmal. I mean, people say this quarterback draft is bad, right? Cam Ward is considered the number one.
But forget NFL. Talk about But that's why I said on the show yesterday when we talked about Beck and the possibilities of it. Like, name me the quarterbacks across college football that you would rather have than Beck. I'm not saying he's the top choice, but how many can you for sure say are 5, 6? I mean, and that's even then. I'm talking about, I want guys who have been proven at a high level. If we want guys who are you want to go try to win a championship or win a conference with, I should say.
Yes, let's go through some of these names, guys. So again, throw them in the portal.
Mateer, which Miami tried to go get.
Yep, Miami tried to go get, and I think he's good. I think Mateer is good, but we haven't seen him in the SEC or Big Ten or ACC level.
I think the upside's very high there.
Yeah, I like him. I would bet on him, except for the fact that Oklahoma's supporting cast stinks. So that's going to be the big problem with Mateer. But the player I like, but not proven.
Richard says Shador, but we're talking about guys who could play next year in college.
Right.
Shador's going to the league,
and even then, people in the NFL say that this quarterback class is extremely weak. Daniel Jeremiah, former NFL personnel guy who's had GM interviews. He my favorite podcast I always talk about on the show. He said there's a gap. He was laughing about teams that need a quarterback. He goes, look, after the first pick, which he was hinting was Cam Ward, there's going to be a big drop-off, huge drop-off. So that shows you this year. The guys coming back, I think are worse, because Drew Allers is considered the top quarterback returning from an NFL perspective. You guys all saw Okay, so 26 is saying Mateer is better than Beck. Let's not do this. LOL.
That's not the discussion.
Well, I mean, we could have the discussion.
Right.
I don't know who's better because I want to see Mateer in the SEC. In the SEC, I want to see Beck with his elbow. But Beck is considered by both 247 and on 3 as the best player in the portal, including Mateer. So this is not me with the orange and green stuff in the back trying to pop him up. That's the perception. So it's not. Obviously, it's a worthy discussion. But let's say Mateer. I like Mateer. The top guy that people talk about coming back for the NFL is Drew Aller. And you guys saw Drew Aller yesterday.
And I would have probably said him for sure before last night, but that was brutal.
He couldn't even hit the lateral. Remember they did the lateral at the end? He missed that throw too. He sailed that one out of bounds. So he was awful last night. Who else is coming back? Nico has been dead average, right? He looks great, but he's been dead average productivity-wise. Jordan Mailata at USC, somebody, Miami was linked to when he was considering after the portal. He's under 60% completion and he's thrown a lot of picks himself and hasn't had, put it all together yet. I mean, who else? I'm
looking up. Arch Manning's going to be a highly rated guy. Lenoris Sellers.
So Arch Manning, who hasn't played and is going to stay at college at least 2 years, he'll be good.
Yeah, he'll be good.
We think.
Lenoris Sellers, I like.
Lenoris Sellers, I like too. But remember, Lenoris Sellers only had half a season of good football. So, we've seen these guys that they have half a season of good football. We crown them and they go back.
The point is, all
TBD
of these quarterbacks have warts, right? There's not going to be a perfect choice. Nussmeier probably would be the closest thing to the top guy.
And Nussmeier, so yeah, Sellers had a bad bowl game as well. Nussmeier, I like also. But if you look at Nussmeier's stats last year were pretty much identical to Beck's, other than the fact that he threw some more passes. So, and that was Beck's down year. It wasn't Beck's great year. So, there aren't that many guys. People are talking about Mendoza. I like Mendoza too.
We've both been vocal about the Mendoza,
base.
so we don't have to. We would have taken him. So,
but I do think the traits of Beck right now are superior to Mendoza, and certainly he's been more productive. So, Mauricio Torres, how many posts on Kane's Insight? I'll give you the exact number for those of you who look, how many people we got on the show right now? Almost 5,000. Please, guys, like and subscribe to this show. I'll put the link in the chat here, kanesinsight.com. So you'll see it right there. This is a free site. 7,317,422 posts on Kane's Insight. It is by far the biggest Kane's community on the planet. There is no number 2 as far as size. I mean, the closest thing is Twitter, right? Or Facebook, So Elon's competing with us, but no one else. Biggest Kane's community on the planet. Sign up for free. Argue. Make your comments just like you do in this comment box right here, but they stay up and people can like them, dislike them, fight about it. It's a lot of fun. If you don't want to get in the mix, you can just listen. You'll get the best news, the quickest news. Someone posts something on social media, it's on Kane's Insight the second it hits. Is that kind of site is the best way to keep up to date with the news. If you are a fanatic, you can just leave that tab open at your workplace all day. And when something happens, I guarantee you will hear about it on kanesinsight.com immediately. Carter K9, D-Train. What are our physical mismatches that we have in our favor on offense? I'm not D-Train. There's only 2 D-Trains. That's Dontrell Willis, who should have won the Cy Young in 2005 for your Florida Marlins, and Dennis Smith, the big player in Miami's personnel department. So I'll let those guys have the D-Train name. But for me, what physical mismatches do we have in our favor on offense? I'll tell you the biggest one, and that goes left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. That's the biggest physical mismatch Miami has, and potentially in their running game with the size and physicality. Appreciate you, Canes. Fred, good day for us Canes fans. Hit the like button. Yeah, like and subscribe. Gio, Kane's Insight is literally an addiction. I apologize in advance. There should be a Surgeon General's warning, but people are on there all day, man, because it's just addictive. The news hits immediately, no matter what happens. The jokes, the GIFs, the arguments, the inside jokes. It's just something that you just become part of. You can be part of it, making posts. You can just be reading about them, just trying to keep up with the news. A million ways to follow Kane's Insight. You can just read the stories that we post, but it is nonstop. It's also baseball, also basketball, of course, recruiting, portal, and the team.
The Carter K9 asking about the best prospects for the NFL and the Canes. We actually were having a pretty long discussion before the show. I had a conversation with someone this morning who told me there's a really wide gap between Elijah Arroyo and the rest of Miami's draft prospects. That doesn't mean Cam Ward's not going to be a top 5 pick, right? That's definitely trending to be the case, but obviously the nature of the position plays into that. Elijah Arroyo is in the mix to be the top tight end taken here. Tyler Warren at Penn State, it obviously a very, very highly thought of guy, but based on someone I spoke to this morning, that's definitely something that's in the mix. You have 5 Canes going to the Senior Bowl. So Jalen Rivers, Ward, Damian Martinez. Who are the other 2, D?
Jalen Rivers,
Restrepo.
Yeah, Arroyo.
So that's the 5 right there.
Yeah.
Those guys will all get drafted. I think Restrepo probably mid-rounds. Could he work himself into that 3rd round? Potentially. He needs a strong process here. Arroyo, I think, has a chance to be a late 1st round pick. Top 50 pick, I think, without a doubt here. Let's see. Rivers will get drafted mid to late round. He doesn't have the high athletic upside, so that'll keep him from being like a top 3 round pick. I think probably 4 to 6 for him, but has played a lot of football. So I think there's going to be probably 7, 8 guys picked.
Yeah. So a lot of comments about Tyler Warren being the best tight end in the draft. So I'll give you my hot take. I've been saying it. So,
and this was a scout. This is a scout who told me, this is not my opinion necessarily. I personally think Warren's better, but there's a discussion there that's being had in the NFL.
And by the way, I've been saying it on this show for pretty much all season. I love Tyler Warren, man. He's a stud. You guys saw him yesterday playing Wildcat. The guy's a monster. Loveland is pretty good. There's a good tight end class in general. Mason Taylor, man, he's got the best bloodlines in football history, probably 2 Hall of Famers, one on both sides. So, and Harold Fannin from Bowling Green. The guy from Texas is a heck of a tight end. Appreciate you, Trin and Breeze. There's a lot of great tight ends this year. But in my opinion, I don't expect everybody to agree with me. I like Elijah Arroyo as the best tight end in this draft. I've been going to Green Tree since I was a kid. I grew up in that area. So I've seen Bubba Franks on Green Tree. I've seen Jeremy Shockey on Green Tree. I've seen Njoku, right? Kellen Winslow, you name it. Greg Olson, Jimmy Graham, all these guys. I think Elijah Arroyo can be up there with the really, really good ones we've had. He's 6'4", he's 250, he looks the part. Not height, weight doesn't always match the eye test that scouts do when they body type guys in person. Elijah Arroyo is a good looking 6'4", 250. It's solid. He's not carrying extra weight. He's not frail. He's how you want it to look. He is the fastest tight end in the draft. I don't know what the 40 is going to say, but you guys seen it on the field. There's no other tight end going 60 yards like he does. This guy is the fastest tight end in the draft. He's a fluid route runner. He's tough after the catch and in blocking. He's not a blocking tight end, but he's a willing blocker. And then what I love, go look at the bowl, the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Who was in on the last snap of the Pop-Tarts Bowl in the 4th quarter? Elijah Arroyo. This is someone with injury concerns his whole career, and he played the entire Pop-Tarts Bowl. So mentally, toughness-wise, team-wise, elite. So look, will people agree with me? I don't know. I've been saying Elijah Arroyo is a big-time NFL prospect since spring. I think that's going to come to pass there with the draft. But everybody's got their opinions. There were some people that thought that it was insane that people were picking Edgar and James over Ricky Williams back in the day. We know how that turned out. So just my take. He needs to stay healthy, obviously. But I think Elijah Arroyo, with his speed and then all the other stuff he brings, is going to be the best tight end in the NFL draft.
Peter Areola asking, is Beck mobile? I mean, look, he's not, I wouldn't be designing run plays for him, but he's not a statue back there by any means. And that's one of the reasons why he was an NFL these top NFL prospects have to have some sort of mobility with them.
Yeah. And when I spoke to my NFL source, which is again, a pretty legit NFL source, he mentioned Beck's athleticism as a plus. If you want to see Beck's athleticism, the best game to see is watch the Clemson game. Because there were a couple times where he really had to move around, and you could see it. Look, Cam Ward, probably not, but certainly way more than you saw with Emory Williams, and more than you see with like a Dorsey. He's like, or Brock Berlin. He's more than that, more than a Tyler Van Dyke. Maybe Tyler Van Dyke before he started getting beat up.
Over 5,000 here, D.
Like
and with that, I guess we get some bots as well with that.
Probably like and subscribe to this show. It's getting a little chilly. The weather is nice. Miami Hurricane Team Store, Miami's official retail provider. If you're out of the state, out of the country, out of the city, MiamiHTS.com. If you're here local, right across the street from the University of Miami, the Beck family is probably going on their visit to University of Miami. Him and Hannah headed over to the Miami Hurricane team store to load up on gear for the season, right there across the street from the school, next to the Thesis Hotel. If you're there in person, all you have to do is say Kanes Insight, look at me 20% off. If you're online, promo code INSIGHT20, 20% off your first item at the Miami Hurricane team store. Look at all this gear. That Carson Beck jersey is probably, when that Carson Beck jersey comes out, I guarantee you the first place it's going to be available is the Miami Hurricane team store, the official retail provider for the Miami Hurricanes athletic program, which we all love so much. Support it with the Miami Hurricane team store, up to 5,000, 1 hour, 30-minute. Maybe upload his highlight reel for us. I don't watch Georgia.
We'll get hit with copyright, man.
Yeah, exactly. Just put it on YouTube, and you can go to CanesInsight.com. We got some clips there on the story.
Well, listen, he's watching us on YouTube, so we don't want him to leave our show and just to go get the highlights. So we got to open another tab.
Yes, sir. All right, folks. Well, we will leave you there. Appreciate everybody's support on the show. Like and subscribe to this show. Go Canes.
Go Canes.